First of all, I want to welcome you. Thank you for accepting the video vetting committee process.
My pleasure.
Cherokee County Republican Party. We greatly appreciate it. This is Sam Moore, running for House District 22, and we're going to allow everyone around the table to introduce themselves, starting with Bill.
Bill Durrell. Trenton Adams.
Jack Stable.
Harry Abrams, that's it.
Hey.
And I'm Lori Pesta, and I'm the chairman of this committee, and these are all my little elves.
Excellent.
I'm going to quickly read something to you, and then we'll get started on the questions.
Okay.
The vetting process is meant to allow members of the party and the community to be able to understand the positions, views, and beliefs of the issues and questions held by those who wish to be elected as a representative of the people. So we want to make sure that you fully understand the process and what we're going through. There are, I would say, several two-part questions. Overall, there's about 34 questions, and some of them are two-part questions. Each member of the committee will ask a question. We go around the table, and then there are a few questions at the end that I will be asking as well.
Okay.
So we're going to start with Bill, just like we have in the other video, the other interview, and stick to the same process for all candidates. So Bill, would you like to start with the first question?
I'll start saying welcome. If you could just state your full name and your legal residence and how long you've resided in Cherokee County in the district.
My name is Sam Moore, Samuel Keller Moore. My legal residence is 190 Dornell Road, Ball Ground, Georgia, 30107. I've lived in Cherokee County my entire life, except for when I was at Georgia Tech, but I still have a mailing address with my mother in Cherokee County.
Are you currently a member of the Cherokee County Republican Party, and how do you see your involvement going forward regardless of the outcome of the election?
I've been a member, a platinum level member in fact, for 2 years, and I plan on continuing that same train.
Please describe 3 pieces of legislation you would like to see passed in your first term, whether creating law or removing or amending existing law.
So I've been speaking a lot with voters in my district, and Obamacare is one of their single biggest issues. So I would love to see Georgia move away from Obamacare through 10th Amendment nullification, both hard and soft nullification of that. That's something that's probably the #1 issue that I've heard walking around. Another piece of legislation that I like to see is the repeal of property tax. And the repeal of income tax as well. Now, whether this would happen in a first administration, that would be kind of hard to pull off, I understand that, but that's what I'd like to see. Something that could happen in first administration though, there's a few gun bills out, church carry, campus carry, things like that. They do have a good chance of passing, and there's a HB 195, I believe, out that would allow counties to work together for transportation, and that's something that I'd like to help out on as well.
Okay, Harry?
What state house committees would you like to serve on, and what do you think are the most important issues for those committees in 2014?
There's a few I'd like to serve on. One would be the Science and Technology Committee, and the reason for that one is that I have a very strong science and technology background. I think that's typically a freshman, I believe, doesn't get on committees, but I could probably get on that committee. I believe I could probably woo them with my science and knowledge and get on that committee. That'll help me get on other committees to further things. Science and technology, to answer the second part of your question, different ways that science and technology can benefit the state of Georgia. 2 committees I would like to be on, Judiciary Committee, that has to do with the constitutional amendments. We need a constitutional amendment to actually change property tax, something that I would like to abolish. So I'd like to be on that one. And otherwise, Judiciary, non-civil, there's a few laws that I'd like to have changed as well, and those 2 judiciary committees deal with different things. And then finally, Appropriations Committee. I know the chance of that in the first term is very low, but appropriations would allow me to cut the taxes that I want to cut. Or cut the spending that I want to cut, that's allowing taxes. And appropriations deals, of course, with how we spend money in Georgia.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Sam, what characteristics and qualities do you believe are important for the State House representative to possess?
All government officials, State House would be no different, and I wouldn't qualify for just that, but they should be honest, not just honest in general, but honest to themselves. So if there's something that I don't believe in, if there's a piece of legislation that I don't believe, I'm not going to support it. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I think they should be meticulous, meaning that if legislation comes their way, they should know everything about it before voting yes. And of course, they should be accountable to their constituents as well. They need to be accessible, and they need to account for their votes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Based on your understanding of the Georgia Constitution, what do you believe the role is of the role of a state's representative should be?
The role of the representative is actually outlined in Article 3 of the Georgia Constitution, and that role is your typical, what I believe everybody knows of representative, to make laws, et cetera, et cetera. The House, spending starts in the House, impeachment proceedings are started in the House, those sort of things. However, the letter, that's the letter, the spirit of it is to be accountable to the constituents. So that's really what you should be doing when you're down there.
Jeff?
What's your position on the bill to make certain offices, sheriff, district attorney, county commissioners, or court clerk, nonpartisan?
I'm not familiar with that specific bill, but offhand, I would not have a problem with that, having those positions being nonpartisan.
What is your position on term limits?
I'm not really against term limits. I just don't think that they will accomplish what folks think that they will accomplish. Voter apathy in the state and in the nation as a whole has allowed less than stellar legislators to continue in their roles, probably past their prime. So you can pass term limits, but those same legislators are the ones who typically have big money backing, and so you'll just get someone else, another one backed by that same money. So I'm just not sure, it's not that I'm opposed to it, I'm just not sure it'll accomplish anything. But the voter apathy is what we really should be focusing on, and the way to cure ethics at the State House and everywhere else in the government is by the ballot box.
Sam, this is a three-parter. What is the purpose of the Second
Like a
Amendment?
count.
Yeah. The purpose of the Second Amendment. Do you believe that federal gun control laws are constitutional? And does the state have the right to confiscate firearms in an emergency?
The purpose of the Second Amendment is to allow you to defend yourself from both enemies, your neighbors, and enemies foreign, and the government itself when the First and other amendments fail. Hunting, marksmanship, those are secondary. The primary is for people to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. What was the second part?
Do you believe that federal gun control laws are constitutional?
No. It's very clear in the Second Amendment, which is written in relatively plain English, shall not be infringed. Any law passed for gun control is infringing upon the right to bear arms. So absolutely not.
And does the state have the right to confiscate firearms in an emergency?
Shall not be infringed. Yeah, it's pretty plain. I didn't write it, but I just have to follow it, so does everyone else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And sort of a follow-up to the previous question, what is your opinion of constitutional carry, and how about the current limitations on carry such as campuses and churches?
I cannot wait to sponsor or vote for constitutional carry. Just the idea that you can purchase, own, and carry around means to protect yourself as you do a bottle of water. is I think what the founding fathers intended and what I'm completely for, so I'm absolutely for it. And there's a second part to that, campus carry. I
The
believe.
current limitations on campuses and churches.
I disagree with those. Both, for example, churches, they're private property, and a private property owner has the right to tell someone with a firearm or anything else, a shirt they don't like, or just they don't like the color jib or something, that they cannot be on their property. So we do not need any laws against that. So removing the prohibition, I know there is one now in Georgia, the prohibition for churches to have to allow firearms, I'd love to remove that prohibition. Same thing with campus as well.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
What does the 10th Amendment mean to you? And do you believe that states have the right to nullify unconstitutional federal laws?
States not only have the right to nullify them, they have the duty to nullify them. The fact that we have not used our 10th Amendment right to nullify such things as federal highway funds, and especially Obamacare, is abhorrent to me. Walking around, seeing the voters in my area, I would say more than half, 70% do not want Obamacare, and our 10th Amendment right as a sovereign state to say no thank you to the federal government is something that we should exercise fully.
Okay.
Are there any conditions under which you would advocate either raising existing taxes or implementing new taxes?
If we do what I would like to have done, and we get rid of property tax, income tax, we cut it down to the bare bones, we're talking 20 to 50 years down the road, I'm guessing, and at that point, we just can't fund government. Where it's just, government can't be funded. We're not talking about new shiny buildings, we're talking about just the barest of essentials. At that point, I might think about it, but until then, no.
And what's the state of Georgia's role in immigration, securing the border, and amnesty?
The state of Georgia's role, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. Are you kind of looking for my opinion on that? I don't know if you can clarify, but.
When it comes to the states, you have the federal role, does the state of Georgia play a role? If
Oh.
so,
Okay.
what do you think it should be?
I'm not honestly sure what the separation between the two, between federal and state, is on that, on immigration. Whatever laws there are on the books that we would enforce normally from the federal government, then we should be enforcing those, of course. Whatever laws are on Georgia's books that we should be enforcing, I believe we should be enforcing those as well. But I don't know the exact demarcation point between the two, between state and federal, and that's something I need to investigate.
What is your position on food insecure programs, and what about drug testing that has gone along with that?
This is like basically welfare, SNAP cards, things like that. That's what you're talking about for food.
Food stamps.
Yeah, food stamps, things like that. I understand that there's an original intention behind that, and that intention was certainly noble. However, I think it would better be served by private entities, churches, charity groups, things like that. So I'd actually like to see Georgia get away from those sort of things. And I think that not only is it not our role to do that, to provide for people, I think we do it less efficiently than a private enterprise would do, such as a church or a charity group. So I'd like to see for Georgia to get away from that.
What's your position on the Affordable Care Act?
No. Yeah, that's it. No. It's not only unconstitutional, it's a massive overreaching government. I mean, telling us that we have to purchase a product simply for the sake that we exist is something that is horrible. The implementation of it is horrible, as everyone knows, and the vast majority, if not almost a de facto majority of my constituents think that it's horrible. So, no.
When is the government allowed to take actions inconsistent with, meaning against the Constitution?
When can the government go against the Constitution?
Right, we're talking about the state government.
when pigs fly. Like, I mean, not like in an airplane or being thrown. I mean, when they sprout wings and start doing barrel rolls on their own, at that point maybe, no, the state can't, no one goes against the Constitution.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
Sam, what's the unemployment rate in your district?
I don't know. Offhand.
Do you accept donations from outside of your district?
Actually, just if I could clarify on that, I don't know the answer to that, and part of not knowing the answer is because I don't think it would change legislation. If the unemployment rate was higher or lower, I still have the same principles and still look at the same reasons for voting. So if it's 7%, if it's 9%, I think it is hovering somewhere around there probably. It wouldn't really change anything, so.
Fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
Do you accept donations from outside of your district, and if so, how do outside district donations affect your decision making?
I accept donations from people that I know in Georgia. I accept donations from people that I know outside of Georgia, personally, but I've yet to accept any donations from someone that I know, someone that I do not know outside of Georgia. And the way I see that, the way I justify that, is that people who live in Georgia have a vested interest in what I do. Laws that I make, decisions that I make affect everyone in Georgia, so they do have a stake in it. If there's a stranger outside of Georgia that I don't know, don't have any affiliation to, I don't accept funds. They have no dog in the game. So I don't know why they would do that, and there's something sketchy about that, basically, to use a technical term. I do not accept donations from businesses. I have not accepted donations from businesses, and I have not accepted donations from PACs as well. The reason being is that I want to try to campaign using only individual donations, such that I'm only accountable to individuals and don't later owe business favors or things like that. And I want to try my best to stick to that. It's not a campaign promise, it's just something I'm trying to do, and so far I've done well.
Thank you. The next question is very similar to what you just stated, but I'm going to have Jack ask the question anyhow.
Okay.
Are you receiving PAC or lobbyist contributions? If so, how much will your decision-making process be affected by lobbyist or PAC money?
Like I said before, I haven't received any. I don't plan on receiving any. It's easy to say that because I don't think I need to. If in the future, if I ran for a different office or something like that, just to kind of give that question a little bit more fairness, it would have no bearing on it whatsoever. At most, all it would do is grant access, say, hey, I donated, you can talk to me if you want to, as someone who has donated, and you get the same time and consideration that anyone else would. That would be about it. I don't expect to get too much money from too many other businesses or things like that. They're just not going to profit from me.
Please describe the geographic boundaries of your district and how much of your district includes Cherokee County.
If you start in the northeast corner of Cherokee County and you go across to the town of Nelson, it's slightly past that, but go across the town of Nelson, it zigzags south from there. It's over 575, it follows I think the Etowah River for a little bit. It's kind of these arbitrary boundaries. It goes down, you have a little piece of the Univetter precinct that sticks out there. It's kind of like a finger. You have a finger, it's Bradshaw precinct, including the Bradshaw subdivision. There's a little sliver that runs probably about a mile or two into Fulton, a couple miles, maybe more than that, 5 miles into Fulton, that follows the Cherokee-Fulton line for South County. And for Forsyth County, there's a joining ward between Forsyth and Cherokee County that's about 1.5 miles or so. And there's kind of a thumb in Forsyth County as well that juts down. Then, of course, you come straight back up the Cherokee County line back to the corner where you started at. I don't know if I give good directions, if anybody's lost, but that's basically it. As far as the percentage-wise, looking at the map, I'd say Fulton is probably 5-ish%. Forsyth is probably 10 to 15%. So if we round it to 15, then that would leave Cherokee County to be roughly 80%, maybe 85%. And that's just looking at the map.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's geographic-wise. Population-wise, I don't know.
Bill?
Oh,
Am I out of order here? Is this right?
no,
Okay,
you're
all
fine.
right,
Yeah,
okay,
just
okay.
listening. Sam, for solutions to the traffic and other infrastructure issues, do you support the regional approach, such as the Atlanta Regional Commission, or another method of dealing with these issues?
I do not support any sort of regionalism that results in a group that is unelected, that takes in taxpayers' money and typically squanders it. What I would be in favor of instead for regional issues is to allow counties to work together, which is currently illegal in Georgia, and I believe HB 195, and don't quote me, but I believe that's the bill that hopefully fixes this.
Thank you.
What should the state's role be in regards to alternative energy sources or subsidies?
Probably none. The state should stay out of such things. If we need alternative energy for power generation, then I imagine the power companies would be best to look into that, let the free market decide.
There are a number of issues the agriculture industry is facing in Georgia, including water use, state and federal regulation compliance, tax reform, and immigration. What is your plan to address these issues for the agriculture community in Cherokee County?
Well, I don't have a plan, so I can't answer the question in those terms. But I have to look at each one of those separately. So we'll take water, for example. I know that there's a statewide water fight between Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida, for example. And whatever usage that we come to, that's something that I would certainly fight for Georgia's water rights. As far as immigration, following the law that exists now, and while being sensitive to the needs of both businesses and people who have been here for many generations, working with those and those business owners to make sure that any issues with jobs or training or such things won't put companies under because of us trying to move too fast and knocking over things. Was there a third that I missed?
Tax reform, so state and federal regulation compliance and tax reform.
Yeah, tax reform, if you can reduce taxes, that helps businesses. Businesses pass taxes straight through, so any taxes pass through a business. Businesses having to deal with the taxes as it is now, it requires bookkeeping, it's a sunk cost, the whole broken window fallacy. You have to have entire divisions of people just keeping up with taxes, so I'd like to get rid of all that, and business owners, I'm sure, would applaud that.
Okay, Eric?
What is your opinion on the Common Core State Standards Initiative?
Education should be at the most local level. Parents should have full dominion over how their child is educated, whether it be public, private schools, et cetera, which is outside the realm of Common Core some. But that local control of education does not happen with a state mandate. It doesn't happen with a top-down approach, the state or federal level. So I'd be against Common Core or any other similar scheme. The idea of having a bureaucrat design a system of education for children is abhorrent to me. And the idea of a one-size-fits-all program for children with different needs, different skill sets, will not work. A one-size-fits-all fits no one. I would prefer to have a system to where the teachers are free to teach as they see fit, and teachers who do well, others will learn from those, and teachers who do less well, hopefully those mistakes will be learned from, and those teaching techniques would be avoided. One-size-fits-all system would be horrible.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sam, what are your most important interests outside of your current work?
Wow, I'm a polymath, which means that I try to be an expert in multiple different things. I've been married for 8 years to my wife. She's my number one interest, and if I didn't say that on this video, then I'd be hell to pay. Luckily, it came to mind first. I'm an avid motorcycle rider. I enjoy helping others very much. I recently rode the North Georgia Toy Run, something I look forward to every year. I usually work on personal charities, and what that means is people who need help. So I have a shop that I built, And I do like brake jobs for friends and people who might not be able to afford brake jobs and things like that, more so than organized charity, but I do enjoy doing that. Anything doing with the outdoors, I love the outdoors, everything about it. I love my district. I've floated down the Etowah River in the entirety of my district a few times, introduced a lot of people to it too, and they're like, wow, I can't imagine that we're so far out in the middle of nowhere. So it's great, and I really enjoy it. So I'm kind of rambling on those questions, so sorry about that. But anyway, those are some of my interests, but I have so many interests, it's really hard to pin them down. So
Thank you.
I don't waste y'all's time with my laundry list.
Karen?
Would you work with those across the aisle to pass a budget?
Why wouldn't I? Yeah, I mean, of course. I work with anyone who wants to work to reduce spending and reduce taxes. And if those across the aisle, I guess if what the question presupposes, do not want to do that, then see if I can come up with some creative solution where they think that they're not lowering taxes and spending. It turns out that they are. That's what I want to do.
That's it, the last one. You support the fair tax or consumption tax or some other alternative plan?
A consumption-based tax of some sort is exactly what I like to replace basically all other taxes with. As far as how that consumption-based tax works, I mean, it'd be like a sales tax on everything equally, where the government can't play favorites. But those ideas, those details can be hashed out later. But some sort of flattened consumption-based one-time tax is ideal. And in addition to being easier, it makes it more difficult for politicians to raise taxes through hidden means or through little sneaky little ways. When taxes are raised in a consumption-based tax, everyone sees it immediately, and that will put more pressure on politicians to keep taxes low, where now they can sneak through the back door and do it and raise taxes.
Okay, thank you. We're almost finished. I want to thank you again for participating. The Cherokee County Republican Party thanks you, and of course this is the benefit to our voters overall once they review this, because it will be on the Cherokee County website for all to review. We have a couple other questions, and particularly when it comes to finances, we like to know a little bit about our candidates and their backgrounds. So, have you ever had any license revoked or not renewed for cause, or been the subject of professional discipline or cited for breach of ethics or unprofessional conduct by any association, disciplinary committee, court, administrative agency, or other professional group, or have you been expelled from any organization? And if so, please explain.
Man, I'm glad that my answer is no to all that, 'cause that sounds complicated. No.
All right. Have you or has any organization or business under your control ever declared bankruptcy or been sued or currently facing liens or other financial issues? And if so, please explain.
No.
Okay. Have you ever been arrested or convicted for any crime excluding minor traffic offenses?
No.
Please describe one instance in which you faced an ethical dilemma and how you resolved it.
When I graduated Sequoia High School and went to Georgia Tech, I found a group of guys there that I really enjoyed hanging out with and wound up joining with them. It was a fraternity, and I'm not really a fraternity kind of guy, but it worked out well with them. And so in that program, you adopt a big brother, and that's someone that's supposed to mentor you. And your big brother and you are supposed to be, really tight. It's an older, typically a senior member of the fraternity, and that person you're supposed to be, tighter than anyone else. So anyway, went through, and I was initiated in, and I became house manager. My big brother was also house manager. I replaced him as house manager, and so I was going through and I audited the books, and this is something that hadn't been done at the time. I just decided that it should be done. Granted, I'm a freshman in college, but I just see things the right way and I do them. So in the audit, I realized that we were in a deficit, a pretty significant deficit, and there were some very questionable, spendings on that, and so I talked to my big brother about this, and he told me not to worry about it. And that didn't fly with me for two reasons. One, you have to worry about such things, and two, for him not to want to investigate himself because it's the books that he kept. So it turned out that thousands of dollars were spent on toilet paper. And living in the house, and being a fraternity house, sometimes we didn't even have toilet paper, so I found that to be questionable. And so I approached him on it, and he said, well, it's just, we were going through a lot of toilet paper, and he made some joke about bean burritos or something. Anyway, so long story short, I had to call him on it. I sat down, I said, look, there's something going on here. And so he disappeared, and I tracked him down, called him up, and I said, we have to talk about this. I have to bring this up to the rest. I want to talk about you. I want to talk to you about this first and find out what's going on. And so he refused to, so I brought it to the rest of the fraternity, and we discussed it and came to a decision. And I was trying to be fair on both sides, but we determined that he was definitely embezzling funds and stuff. And so that's, as a freshman and 18-year-old freshman in college, this is my first introduction to college life. But I never looked back, and I felt the whole time I did the right thing, and that's just how I do things.
Okay, thank you. A couple more. Are you currently connected to any outstanding unpaid taxes in any way?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, we want to thank you again for this. This is your last opportunity here on this video to go ahead and share any other information that we have not already addressed. So you have a few minutes to...
Oh, okay.
Go
I'm not sure, it kind of caught me off guard.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to let people know that we are walking door to door, that we are attempting to reach all of the voters in the area and talk with you personally. If we don't, I'd love for you to contact, ask questions, vet me, let me know what's on your mind. That's how I know about what's important to the people in Georgia, to the people in our district, is because I've actually talked to the voters. We've talked to 2,400 so far, and we hope to talk to 8,000 or 9,000 before January 7th. But please reach out. My contact information, I'm sure will be included with this video or nearby. Please use that and vote January 7th.
Well, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.